with my coffee cup, my gavel. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'm Mike Mcconaughey, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. And I'd like to welcome all of you to the public hearing and committee meetings this morning, May 5th, 2021. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building, located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website at the meeting's conclusion. I would like to remind those attending in person at the boardroom today that we must abide by the City Council ordinance requiring that all those attending in person today wear a face mask or a face covering or maintain 6-foot distancing from one another in indoor public settings in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This ordinance will remain in effect until May 25th, 2021. I'd like to also mention that due to the recent passage of LB 83, amending the Open Meetings Act, board members are permitted to participate remotely if they so choose under certain circumstances. Today we have 3 board members, Director Howard, Director Cook, and myself, who have opted to do so. I was planning to be there myself, but my wife is still recovering from back surgery, so I decided to stay here and do it remotely. All right, I'd like to invite our Vice President of Safety, Security, and Business Continuity, Shane Hunter, to provide a briefing regarding protocol for those individuals in attendance at the board meeting today in the event of an emergency. Shane?
Good morning, Shane Hunter, Vice President of Safety and Security. In addition to the normal entry and exit path that we took coming into the boardroom this morning, located on the first floor, an emergency exit is located here on this side. Also in that hallway out there, you'll find the nearest first aid kit, fire extinguisher, and the AED. With the location of the AED in mind, if we have a medical emergency in this room, 911 will be contacted from the security desk, and they'll escort the first responders into this space. If we need to seek shelter for any reason, it is severe weather season. Our severe weather shelter is also through these doors in that hallway. And should we need to evacuate the building for any reason, we'll go through that same door, take 2 lefts into the parking garage, where we'll reconnect for an accountability of everyone's attendance. That concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you, Shane. Mary, could we have roll call, please?
Howard?
Here.
Kavanaugh?
Here.
Bagley?
Here.
Cook?
Here.
Friend?
Here.
Frost?
Here.
McGowan?
Here. I'd like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available in the back of the boardroom, and a copy is also available in the nearby conference room set aside for members of the public who may wish to attend. Okay, Mark Myers, would you present the proposed updates to the billing price book?
Good morning. Yes, Mark Myers, Vice President of Accounting. I'll be discussing the information behind tab 5 in your binders, which addresses updates to the billing price book. There are 3 documents in the binder. The first is the memo to the committee outlining the changes being proposed. The second is the detailed list of the proposed prices. And the third is the resolution that you'll be voting on in the regular board meeting to follow. In addition, last Friday, you would have received by email a copy of the slides. I see that those of you here in the room have those on your desk as well, if you'd like to follow along.
Mark, could you turn your volume up? You're okay, but I'd like it a little louder if you could.
Okay, I'll stand closer to the microphone. Is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay, I'd like to start by just providing a little background about the process for developing the billing price book. So the prices in the book are establishing the rates for various services and materials that we provide to our customers and to contractors for services beyond those monthly fees that we charge for providing gas and water service. They typically become effective June 1st upon your approval. They're updated annually, but as a reminder, last year we did not update the price book due to COVID. We didn't implement any price increases. So the last time we did implement any new pricing was on June 1st of 2019. We generally structure the pricing to recover our actual costs of providing these services and materials, but there are a few exceptions to that. For example, some things are not cost-based. They may be more penalty-related, such as an unauthorized turn-on fee when someone turns their service back on after it's been turned off for non-payment. And there are other instances where we intentionally price things below cost, and one reason we have done that in the past is to provide some relief to customers who are facing financial hardship. An example of that is the turn-on charge for collection accounts. This next slide just provides some context around the amount of revenue generated from the billing price book items. So you can see in 2020 we had total gross revenue of $331 million. The yellow slice of the pie there indicates that we had about $5 million generated from billing price book items, and that's about 1.5% of the total. But although that's a relatively small piece of the district's revenue, we do a thorough review each year to ensure that our costing methodologies are accurate and the prices are reasonable. I would like to just recognize briefly Stephanie Lemons, and she's a manager in our accounting department who compiles all this information. She works very closely with others across the district who are providing these services to ensure that all the calculations are updated and complete, and it's a big effort, and I do thank her for her efforts there. With that said, I would go to the frequently billed services, starting with field service labor. Field service technicians provide many of the services that are included in this book, so these rates become parts of the prices for many other components of the book as well. We are proposing a less than a 2% increase in these rates, with the base rate for the first 30 minutes increasing $2 from $119 to $121, and the rate thereafter, the hourly rate after that first half hour, going up $3 from $173 to $176. And that's driven by higher wage rates due to progression increases and general increases that occur annually, partially offset by some lower overhead rates for some of the benefit costs and some of the other general and administrative overheads. The next item is the turn-on charges, various charges for turning on gas and water services. And of that $5 million I mentioned earlier, about 2.1 of that is generated through these various turn-on charges throughout the year. The first items here, items A and B, are referred to as the regular turn-on fees, where we send a technician out to turn on the service. And we're proposing leaving those unchanged at $95 for the regular scheduled rate and $120 for the priority unscheduled service. We're holding those prices flat, generally to continue to provide some relief to customers, as we're still not to the end of the pandemic. The third item there, item 2C, is the one I mentioned earlier. It's the collection account, so it's turning on service for a customer who had previously been turned off for non-payment. Back in 2019, we established a new tiered pricing structure for that based on the number of occurrences. So the first occurrence was $75, the second was $100, and the third and thereafter was $125. After evaluating that for the last couple of years, we decided to recommend going back to a single rate for this service, and we would propose the lowest rate there, the $75 fee for each time that service would be required. Again, that's below our cost, but yet does provide some relief for those customers who are facing some financial difficulties. The third item is the price for installation of a 3/4-inch water meter with ERT. These are typically installed in newly constructed homes and charged to the builder and not directly to the homeowner. And that $27 price increase is almost entirely related to the cost of the meter itself. So of that $26 is related to the cost of materials, and the labor cost is going up $1. The fourth item is the water main tap and inspection for a 1-inch corporation. We're proposing to leave that price the same at $439. The higher labor rate and the higher materials costs are being offset by more efficiency in installing those taps. So in other words, the field service technicians are doing that a little faster than they had in the past, and reducing the amount of time and the labor costs associated with doing that. Next, I'd like to discuss a few of the more significant price increases being proposed. This is defined as those that are increasing more than 15% or more than $200. And all of these listed on this slide and the next are related to tapping various sizes of water mains. And really all of the prices here the increases are being driven by higher cost of materials. These taps require fittings that are made of copper and brass, and those metals are actually increasing significantly over the last couple of years since we last updated the billing price book. We did look at some industry data, producer price index information, and these price increases are consistent with what we're seeing in the industry as well. Just like when we sell our gas to customers and pass along the cost of that gas, we're passing along the cost of the materials required to do these taps and so forth. So looking specifically at some of these, the taps, the item number one is actually the corporation or the device that's used for these taps. It doesn't include any labor for installation, and those are directly related to the increase in the cost of the materials. Item number two is large water taps, and they do include the cost of those corporations that I mentioned. And so again, the cost of materials is driving these prices up, and that's actually, so they're increasing by 17 to 27%. This is the cost of the materials plus the labor cost for the field service technicians doing this work. And the price of the materials going up is partially offset by a lower cost of the installation charges. Again, because we're doing this in less time than we had done previously. So, for example, that 16 by 2 tap that's increasing $355, the materials cost is going up $385, but the labor cost is going down $30 for a net of $355. On page 6, these are some other price increases. They're going up greater than 200, but not up 15%. Again, similar story here in terms of the cost of the materials. There is some component that is a higher labor rate included. These taps here specifically are performed by the crews in the water distribution group, and their labor rate did go up over the last couple of years. So as an example, that $279 increase on the top line there, 246 of that is associated with the materials, and $33 is an increase in the cost of the labor. And then finally, we typically report any new billing items that we're proposing to include, and this year we're not recommending any additional new fees to be included in the billing price book. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Excuse me. I'd now like to open it up to any member of the public who would like to comment on the proposed updates that Mr. Myers just reviewed. Due to the COVID-related precautions, members of the public have access to this meeting via WebEx connection that is set up in a nearby conference room at the headquarters building. Are there any members of the public present who would like to address the board regarding the proposed updates to the billing price book? If so, please indicate your intentions to the moderator.
Mr. Chair, we don't have any public present at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to remind the members of the public, if there are any show up, that there will be another opportunity to comment at the end of the regular committee meetings this morning. Okay, Mr. Shafford, will you review the next agenda item pertaining to the renewal of the unsecured line of credit?
Certainly. Good morning. My name is Joe Shafford, and I serve as the Chief Financial Officer for the district. So behind tab number 6, you will find a memo regarding the renewal of the unsecured line of credit. The unsecured line of credit is really an important aspect of the overall financial picture of the district. It's been in place for a considerable period of time. In fact, since October 31st of 06, and it's viewed very favorably by the credit rating agencies as it represents a ready source of cash. The current $30 million credit line expires on June 1st, 2021. Management is recommending a renewal of the credit line, although at a lower level of $20 million instead of $30 million due to improving financial condition and liquidity of the district. I should note that this morning we have two representatives with Piper Sandler joining us virtually. Piper Sandler serves as our bond financial advisor, so we frequently consult with them on matters such as this. The two gentlemen in attendance are Todd Gaffoy, who is a managing director with Piper Sandler, and Matt Courtney, who's a vice president. So in terms of the terms of, nice redundant phrase there, the terms of the unsecured line of credit that we're proposing, again, it's a $20 million credit line. It's a 3-year term expiring June 1 of 2024. It's accessible by either the gas or the water department. It does contain a commitment fee on amounts not borrowed of 15 basis points. So for $20 million, that's $30,000 a year, assuming we don't borrow against the line. And then finally, the interest rate is in this new line pegged to the prime rate. So it's prime rate less 263 basis points. And that seems like a strange basis for an interest rate. And the reason for that is previously the line was based on the 1-month London Interbank Offered Rate, or LIBOR. That benchmark interest rate is anticipated to be phased out by the time this line ends. So the basis is being replaced with prime rate less 263 basis points. That's intended to be roughly equivalent to the current terms of LIBOR plus 50 basis points. Now, if you do the math, the prime's currently about 3.25%. If you take 2.63% off of that, you'd get a borrowing rate of 0.62%. Again, I think everybody's aware we're at historic low interest rates. The line does contain a floor or minimum interest rate of 1.95%. So that would be the borrowing rate now if we were to borrow on this rather than the benchmark-based rate. There are really 4 primary reasons why we're looking to renew the credit line. If I could turn the page. So first, as I mentioned, Piper Sandler consults with us on many items, particularly as it relates to preparing for bond issuances. And as the board will recall, in a recent meeting, we passed bond resolutions that addressed bond issuance of just shy of $152 million. Having a credit line in place is a good component of our financial picture as we prepare to issue these bonds, not to mention the fact we have significant capital spending in this budget as well. The second reason, though not assured, the credit line could be a factor in our ability to issue bonds at more favorable interest rates. So to put it in perspective, with $152 million of planned bond issuances, if you lower the interest rate by only 2 basis points, the first 3 years of interest savings virtually covers the commitment fee for these credit lines. So we believe it's a prudent thing to do. The third thing, and perhaps the most obvious, is the credit line serves to bolster our liquidity. And it's an important aspect of the overall financial picture for the district. On May 19, 2020, Moody's Investor Services issued a water and sewer utilities sector report. And in that report, they revealed that of all the rated water utilities for which Moody's issues an opinion or a credit rating, the median cash flow was over 400 days of cash on hand. Our water department has less than that, 347 days as of the end of February, though still dramatically improved from history, but still less than median. So the credit line effectively serves to bolster that liquidity, and that it's counted towards your liquidity. So if you look at the average daily expenses incurred by the water department, a $20 million line is equivalent of adding 83 days of liquidity to our cash-based liquidity calculation. The final reason has to do, I'd say, with analyzing the nature of the unrestricted cash, particularly on the water side. So at the end of February, the water department had $82.4 million of unrestricted cash on hand, which, as I've indicated, translates into 347 days cash on hand. Again, dramatic improvement over the last 5 to 10 years. But if you look at if you look at the components of that unrestricted cash, much of that cash is for what I'll call designated purposes. So for example, of that $82.4 million, we have $36.8 million in water infrastructure related cash that's been accumulated that will be spent as the ramp up of water infrastructure main replacement occurs. The other thing that's in there is, as the board is aware, we bill sewer on behalf of some surrounding communities, including the city of Omaha primarily. Of that $82.4 million, just shy of $16 million relates to sewer amounts collected that will be remitted in the following month. So for these reasons, we are very transparent in the way we report cash, and we also think it's very important that we maintain the cash, I'll say, buckets for the purposes for which they were raised, which is why we want a liquidity boost, particularly on the water side in the form of a credit line. So again, I guess in summation, we feel like it's a prudent way to bolster liquidity, particularly for the water department. This concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Joe, I have a quick question. If we ever did use the reserves, tap into them and borrow from it, what are the repayment terms? Do we pay it back monthly, yearly, annually, or whenever we have the cash, or what?
It would be a predetermined payment schedule, Director McGowan, monthly. Again, the beauty of the credit line is how readily available the cash is. You know, you might think, well, you know, you've had a long-standing relationship with First National as well as the other two banks that service. Just go to them for some money. And the difference is it takes a while to secure a loan from a bank, even if you have a long-standing relationship, where with a credit line, I could call our banking officer today and literally have the cash tomorrow. So that's the importance of a credit line versus negotiating a loan.
Right, but we do pay it back monthly then?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Joe, just a quick question.
Yes.
Hypothetically speaking, if the district did have 400 days of liquidity on hand, would you be recommending the $20 million credit line?
You know, it would be something we would phase out, and it would also be driven by whether or not you had bond issuances in that year. What Piper Sandler has shared with me, and I defer to them on matters such as this, particularly as you prepare for a bond offering, they said it's not a great deal, it's not a great idea to treat it digitally, meaning you have a certain amount today and zero tomorrow. You'd phase it down, and frankly, that's part of the reason why I'm dropping it a little bit, but it's part of a strategy to perhaps gradually unwind this. If things turn out the way we budgeted, we should be able to unwind this further over time.
Sure. Well,
Yes.
I recall we had a robust discussion about this
We did.
last year, and again, you've done a great job of presenting
Right.
information, so thank you.
Great memory, Director Bagley. Thank you.
Joe,
You lose that, Jim, when you get older.
Joe, quick question. Have we shopped this out, or more appropriately, maybe an RFP? I mean, we're going back to renew the line of credit, although at a lower amount at First National. Are there any other financial institutions that we considered before we considered extending First National's agreement?
We have relationships with two other banks, Wells Fargo and U.S. Bank, and to be completely candid, we didn't shop it to those other banks, but the way we did shop it is, how does this compare to what you're offering to your largest customers? And the answer is, this is the best deal First National offers.
I don't have an issue with that, and I'm not
Right.
saying we shouldn't go to First National, but maybe this is something that's a Piper question. Okay, it's the best offer First National has, but is Wells Fargo or U.S. Bank? And I know we like to try to stay local, and First National is more local than the other two, but if we could save, you know, $10 or $20 or $30,000 by shopping it to somebody else, because there's a minimum fee for this, right? So,
Right.
do you have any sense of what the competition is in terms of offering this to other institutions?
I can't directly state what U.S. Bank and Wells Fargo would offer. It's a very competitive rate. You know, perhaps Piper could weigh in, but a borrowing rate of 1.95% is quite favorable. The commitment fee at 15 basis points is very competitive. And in fact, when visiting with our banking officer, again, for customers that require larger lines, of course, that commits more of their capital, which would result in higher commitment fees. So in the 20 to 30 million range, it's about 15 basis points, but the interest rate is very competitive. Piper, do you care to weigh in on what you're experiencing?
Sure. Good morning, Joe. Good morning, board members. We did not have those discussions with the other banks, but feel like what First National Bank has offered is in line with what we see with other entities.
I'm not prepared, I appreciate this, thank you. I'm not prepared to say we shouldn't do this, but I'll just leave the other board members with, we don't know what we don't know.
I will weigh in on, this is Gwen, I will weigh in on just a small personal perspective. Right now, I would suggest this is the time to be leaving a steady relationship. I bank with U.S. Bank, and I can tell you they're totally inaccessible. You have to make an appointment to have one, to even meet with an individual at the bank. They've closed down their locations in the baker's grocery store. I would say if you have a good relationship and a person you can contact, right now would not be the time to abandon that.
I'd like to weigh in also. This is Tanya, and kind of building on what Director Friend has said, if we are moving toward a world that doesn't always go to the person that you know down the street in an effort to be not only fiscally responsible and doing your due diligence there, but being potentially more inclusive of what we as a business could be offered. I just want us all to start thinking less on autopilot, and even if we're going through the exercise of taking that extra step to get another bid or another opinion, then we're in the habit of doing that and not just operating as we always have. Thank you.
Tanya, thank you. That's probably more accurately stated what I was thinking. And Joe, I'm not saying that we, and I'm looking at Mark Doyle here, I'm not saying that we lay this over, do anything about it, but M.U.D. has got a great credit rating. We've got a lot of liquidity on our own. We pay our bills. I would think any bank would like to have our business along these lines. And it's not an anti-First National or pro any other institution statement. I just want to make sure that whatever we're paying for the ability to access this line of credit is in the best interest of all of our ratepayers. And big government institutions have a tendency, I'm not saying us, but big government institutions have a tendency to not look at some of the small change items. And if we could save $20,000 or $30,000 here, and I don't know that we could, I'm just saying we don't know what we don't know. That's all. Thank you.
Mark Doyle, President. Thank you, Director Friend, for the commentary, and Directors Howard and Cook. I see no reason, Joe, why couldn't we just check regardless of what we do here?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's a great idea.
Sure.
And it's more than just this, as you've all stated. It's about just not falling into that habit. I see no reason not to. I don't think does it expire on us?
It does expire on June 1st, right?
Yeah, so we have time.
I mean, could I reach out to First National and perhaps extend it a month to enable us to get rates from our other two banks? I would think that would be agreeable.
Yeah.
I don't mean to add more work, but I would feel much more comfortable if we could extend this for a month if First National is agreeable, and find out what the competition looks like. And I appreciate what Director Howard said about U.S. Bank not being accessible. But with the pandemic, a lot of banks closed and are not necessarily accessible. And I'm just thinking of it in terms of what are our overall costs of operations and how does that impact our ratepayers.
Yeah.
All right, consider it done. We will get competitive rates and bring those back next month. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing. Bank fees sometimes can be very unprecise. What are the fees called? I'm drawing a blank on what those fees are that a bank charges to do business with them. But anyway, this seems very precise, this number, so it should really be easy to compare.
Sure. Sure.
I'll think of the term.
I will too, but this doesn't have the little asterisk up in the corner, like they used to joke about banks, yeah.
A lot of times the fees aren't known until the end of the year, and then they go back and recapture. So this is
Boy,
fairly...
Tim, that is so true, because you don't know the fees, as Director Friend would say, and what you don't know about those fees.
Yep. All right, thanks.
Thank you, good
Very well.
discussion.
Thank you.
So let me see if I can recap this. We're going to lay this over and not vote on it today. Joe, you're going to see if you can get a month's extension at First National Bank, then get some more information and bring it back to us in the June meeting?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
Joe, one final question, do you, in your role, see any difficulty? I mean, what if First National says, no, that's the best deal, we don't really want to extend it? And I don't know that they would. I just don't want to put you or our financial picture in a bind by the board, not voting till June.
We'll come back with the recommendation immediately and see if you'll ratify, and maybe ratify at the following meeting. We won't let it expire.
Okay. I just don't want to put
okay with
I don't
bind
think
with our bond rating agencies or
This
anything.
won't be a problem.
Okay.
It certainly doesn't damage the relationship with the banks. And again, I think there's still sufficient time before a bond issuance to get this addressed. So we should be fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Any other questions for Joe or discussion? Okay, construction and operation. Mr. O'Brien, will you review the proposed capital expenditures?
Good morning. Corey O'Brien, Vice President of Engineering and Construction and Interim Chief Operations Officer. Behind tab 7 this morning is our capital expenditures letter. We have 6 requests this month, and if you'll turn to page 2, I'll discuss several of them here briefly. The first one being number 1 under system improvements. This is a request for about $145,000 to do a pilot project to do condition assessment of about 3,300 feet of 12-inch unwrapped ductile iron pipe. This particular main is in I Street primarily from 102nd to 108th, and there's about 700 feet that goes north-south in 102nd Street. This pipe was installed in 1964, but has had 9 main breaks since 2003. The city is proposing to do a resurfacing project in 2022, and so we're doing our work now to stay ahead of their project. Under this project, we are proposing to use a diagnostic tool called the Sea Snake, which will be inserted into our pipe, and we will use water flow to push it through the pipe, and then we'll do a condition assessment of the pipe wall. Now, the main is out of service during this diagnostic test, but it's not too long in duration. We hope to do it in a day over a weekend after we do a little bit of prep work. So this tool, Jay, if you would bring up the picture of the Sea Snake for me, please. This tool is developed by PICA, and Jared Figuera mentioned PICA on his infrastructure update. It stands for Pipeline Inspection and Condition Analysis Corporation. They've developed the Sea Snake. We'll get you a picture here in just a second. There we go. That's the device that we insert into our water main. And like I said, the water will push it through the main and it will do its analysis of our pipe. The tool looks for localized area of pipe wall loss and will generate a report upon completion of its testing. So our goal here is to determine the most cost-effective replacement strategy and replace only the pipe that the technology tells us is compromised. And what's really significant about this is probably even 5 years ago, if we had the same situation, we would probably have replaced the pipe in its entirety or relocated it entirely due to lack of detailed information. So this tool will allow us to make better decisions. Upon completion of the testing and once we get the report, I'd be glad to report back to you on what it found for us, and I'd be glad
Corey,
to.
what's the diameter of that?
Of the device?
Yeah.
I think it's a little over 10 inches, and our pipe is 12 inches.
Okay. And when we do it over a weekend and say it takes a day, will there be lost service that day to any residents or businesses?
This particular piece of main, thank you for the question, Director McGowan. This particular piece of main is in a commercial area, So we have about 17 commercial services that will be shut off during the test, but we'll be doing it over a weekend to minimize impact to the customers.
Okay, obviously, we're working ahead with them to let them know about it.
Yes, of course.
And how are we letting them know, Corey?
We work closely with corporate communications to reach out to them individually and coordinate. So, like I said, we have a little, even on this project, we have a little bit of prep work where we have to remove a couple sections of pipe so we can insert the tool and take the tool back out. So there'll be a preliminary shutdown that they will be well notified of, and then their corporate communications works with them closely to minimize any impacts to their business.
Okay.
Director Kavanaugh, Mark Doyle, President. We had an issue that we worked with you on in your district recently, and corporate communications wasn't brought in like they should have been. We've been trying some new things with message boards, and it might have been not the case there, but we're working closer, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. But we hope you'll find, by way of no feedback from these customers, that the methods by which we'll be reaching out are going to be significantly better than they used to be. And Mr. O'Brien, I want to mention a couple things about this before we move on to the next one. We typically, on a main like this a few years ago, since the road's being taken apart and new concrete, and by the way, the city's new goals are to replace 500 lane miles a year, up from 250. Yeah, so under every lane mile or near every lane mile are M.U.D water mains and gas mains. A couple years ago, prior to our infrastructure integrity group doing everything we can to minimize disruption and minimize the costs of replacement, rehabilitation, and prioritizing what needs fixing, I'm going to go out on a limb, and Corey said might. We would have replaced this main without even looking at it, and we would have had beautiful pipe in the, I don't know that we'd pull it out, but we would have abandoned some pretty good pipe. We probably, by inspecting and finding out what we think we're going to find out by the experience of other inspections we've done, we'll find a few things maybe that we'll repair, but we will minimize the risk of these mains breaking under new concrete without replacing them. So for $145,000, we're saving a couple million right out of the gate. And we have another experience that I want to highlight, because these things are now different. This isn't how we operated 4 or 5 years ago. Based on a lot of things, we're focused on it, and the technology is available and accessible to us. There's a concrete main out near 144th and Harrison, just east. If anyone's driven through the area, it's about at 142nd. We were doing a different type of inspection that I'm not going to try to recall from memory.
Pure technology.
Pure technology, a different type of inspection, because we have about 47, little less than 50 miles of concrete mains, and you might recall one broke on the 4th of July a couple years ago near 120th and Fort. 17 of those miles are defective. The manufacturer's long gone, and they have, a concrete main is a concrete cylinder it's pre-stressed with metal cables in it, and then it's got a metal sleeve on the outside of it to protect the concrete and the wires from anything else. So the wires in these 17 miles, and these are all over the country because that manufacturer sold a lot of concrete pipe back then, the wires were exposed to hydrogen during manufacture, which causes them to get brittle later and possibly break. And if those wires break inside that concrete, it's catastrophic. I mean, these are 54-inch mains under full pressure, and that's what happened near 120th and Fort. So the third party that works with us on the inspection, am I accurate so far? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I get talking and I re-listen to a meeting and I think, okay. So the third party highlighted the fact that right there at that spot, there's a corrosion hole that needs to be taken care of right now. Our engineering group and infrastructure integrity group reacted. We've got a construction crew out there taking care of it, and we're pretty close to getting it buckled up.
It's back in service.
Yeah. We avoided a catastrophic, expensive, possibly $1 million disruption because of this inspection, and we're just getting started. So even though we don't see our main breaks dropping drastically, the types of things that we're now avoiding, and especially trying to support the city as they move to 500 miles. They're doubling the lane miles, and we all see it. I saw it on the way out here today. So I'm going to keep highlighting these things because the progress might seem slow, but I'm thinking we're inching into so many different things with trying to take care of our water distribution system that it's going to be, we're going to drop that curve. I promise you that, but it's not going to be obvious unless we tell you about it. So thanks for letting me get off on a tangent.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I couldn't be happier with management, the rank and file, in all the groups involved, and it's many. I don't want to try to start naming them because it crosses the district, and especially our construction crews. I do want to highlight that the safety department routinely goes out on safety inspections, and since that was such a large project, I think I mentioned this to you, Mr. Bigley, such a large project in the middle of an extremely busy intersection, and there's a small island around between the stacking lanes. We have big equipment. We probably have a dirt pile that's as high as this room. That safety inspection was perfect. And I drove by the area many times because it's in my travels. That isn't always the case, but it was the case here, and these are, we just show up and do them, and the professionalism of the safety department and the reaction of our crews and the rank and file management couldn't be better. And I'm so proud of that because this work is difficult. It's in the middle of traffic, and we don't know what we don't know. You don't have an injury and you don't have a fatality, you'll never know it, and that's the good news. So thank you. I didn't mean to get off on too much.
No, I'm glad you went to Harrison Street.
If I could, just, Corey, I'm sorry.
Nope.
Thanks for highlighting that repair that probably saved another catastrophic failure, because we don't know as a board those types of things, and it's unfortunate that you don't get credit for what you prevented in most cases. So thanks for highlighting that. I appreciate it. Corey, quick question about that sea snake. Do those come in different diameters, just out of curiosity? Because obviously a 12-inch is not the only size ductile iron. Sure. Just curious.
Right, they do. I don't know. I didn't check to see what the range is on the different devices, but they do. I don't know how big they go. And we're seeing like a variety of different technologies. This one is what is called free swimming. It's not tethered by a cable, so the water pushes it down the pipe. The one that we used on Harrison Street was a robotic crawler type thing, and it had to have the pipe dry. So, and we're looking at others that, it's kind of a variety of technologies. And to further that Harrison discussion, the weakness that the condition assessment found was 6 to 8 inches on a 36-inch diameter pipe. It was only a spot about 6 to 8 inches big. And when we dug it up on the outside of the pipe, we found a number of wires had been corroded through. The can was corroded through, and it was compromised in exactly the location that they told us it was. So it's
bullseye. It's amazing. It really is, right? It's encouraging, right?
And we're hoping for similar results. Now, this is a pilot. This is the first time we've used this technology, but we're seeing good success, and I think the hope is that we will avoid significant costs by doing this. Any other questions I can answer? All right, well, we can always jump back if we need to. If we go down on page 2 a little further, items 1 and 2 under building plants and equipment, I'm just going to mention that these are requests for 2 pieces of equipment. Following last month's board meeting, we did, Vice President Melville did produce a schedule of vehicle and equipment purchases for the 2021 budget year, and be glad to provide that to any of the directors should you want to see it. And these are 2 items that would be part of that schedule. So the last item I want to speak to this morning is item number 3 on the last page of the letter. This was an emergency funding request for $76,000 to repair pump motor number 1 at the Turner Boulevard pump station. Routine inspection by our electrical staff found questionable results, and so we had the motor shipped to a repair shop here for confirmation. They did more testing and confirmed that we had a problem with the motor. Turner Boulevard pump station is a heavily used station for us. It has 2 pumps in it, And we typically don't run them together, but we like to have them both available in the summer for redundancy purposes. So we have gone ahead and authorized the repair shop to make these repairs. I will tell you that prior to making that decision, though, we did discuss, okay, this is this is you'll notice in the letter, it's a unit that was originally installed in 1955, so it's not a new unit, it's an old unit. We did talk through, okay, should we be looking at replacement? I can tell you that just on a cursory high level, we're probably looking at $500,000 to replace the motor and the associated equipment and many months of time. And so we will continue to evaluate this equipment for those kind of replacement decisions as we go forward, but to make sure the unit was available for summer, we went ahead and began repairs on the unit. So this is more informational at this point, but I would be glad to answer any questions should you have any.
I'm just glad you went ahead and did that without worrying about holding it over, because time seems to be the essence in this case.
Yep, thank you. Any others? All right, thank you. That's all I have on CNAs.
Okay, thank you, Corey. Ms. Henn, will you review the acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates?
Thank you. Stephanie Henn, Director of Plant Engineering. First of all, I'd like to say it's great seeing people in 3D. This is just a good step. I will be addressing the finals letter behind tab number 8 this morning. We have a short finals letter. We are finaling just one project this month. This was a Judds Brothers construction project. This was approximately a half-mile of 24-inch transmission main for a new development near 204th and 4th Streets. This was approximately a $1 million project. There is a change order, or was a change order on this project of about $17,000. So approval of the final will also approve change order number 1. But even with that change order, there was an overall deduct on the project, and the project came in approximately 15% below what the bid price was. So that's always a good thing. And that's all I have this morning, unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zellers, will you review the bids on materials and contracts, please?
I'm sorry, I wasn't on. I'll start over. John Zellers, Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 9. There are 3 items that I would like to discuss this morning, and the first may be found at the bottom of page 2. We are asking for the ratification of the low bid from Roloff Construction to conduct the water main infrastructure replacement work in a joint contract with the City of Omaha's CSO project between 16th to 20th and Charles to Pinckney Streets. This project will replace approximately 4 miles of various sizes of cast iron water mains. As has been shared with the board in the past, the district will joint contract water main replacements with the City of Omaha street projects and CSO projects. There are several advantages of joint contracting, including an overall lower project cost, reduction in the time to complete the project, more efficient scheduling of work, less adverse impact to property owners, and less adverse impact to the traveling public. In addition, the district would not be responsible for any barricading, paving repairs, or restoration costs, as this would be paid by the City of Omaha. The last 2 items may be found on page 3. We are asking for the approval of purchase of 4 hydraulic breakers from Murphy Tractor. Last November, the board approved the purchase of identical breakers in which Murphy Tractor was awarded the contract through a competitive bid process. Murphy Tractor has agreed to provide the 4 breakers at the same price. We are recommending all bids be rejected for a temporary parking structure that was considered as part of our contingency and business continuity options associated with the settling of the construction center. The board may recall approving a CNA last month authorizing the president to enter into a lease for 14242C Circle in order to relocate operational units that have been displaced by the closure of a portion of the construction center. With this authorization, we feel we no longer need to pursue the temporary parking structure and recommend all bids be rejected. And that's all I have for you this morning, but we'd be happy to answer any questions.
John, quick question about Kirsten. And I know we've asked this before. It looks like you had a lot of bids go out and only 2 come back. So I understand you got to pick one of the 2. And I'm assuming that you have confidence that Kirsten has the ability. I mean, it's almost $2 million worth of what looks like new lot connections or new lot water mains that they can.
Yes, we have
big jobs with a lot of lots going in and a lot of mains. So
yes, we have full confidence in Kirsten's ability to manage the projects that they are awarded. Kirsten's, and as well, I mean, Kirsten's has been around for a very long time. They have been a water main contractor for us for decades, and I have no reservations as to providing these or recommending these projects for them.
Yeah, thank you. No comment on their ability to do it. It was just a lot of work.
Yes.
Is that a factor taken into account when contracts are awarded?
Yeah, it's taken into account, but it's also taken into account the scheduling that's associated with the work. Now, most of these projects, actually all of these projects, are reimbursed by the developer themselves, so it's their money. And so generally the low bid is recommended, and so then there's a coordinated effort between our plant engineering group and the developers and the contractors to do these, to get these projects constructed.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John. Services and extensions, Mr. O'Brien, will you review the proposed main extensions, please?
Yes, I will. Good morning again. Corey O'Brien, Vice President, Engineering and Construction and Interim Chief Operations Officer. Behind tab 10 is our main extensions letter this month. We have 4 water projects. The impact of these 4 main extensions is 350 single residence lots and 40 commercial lots. If you look down at the map, you'll see that the 4 projects are divided amongst 2 of our subdivisions this round. Going to page 2, main extensions 1, 2, and 3, I would just mention that they're straightforward main extensions, and the developers for all 3 of those projects have requested M.U.D. gas. Project number 4, this is a project to provide water service to the Giles Point subdivision at 180th and Giles Road. As part of this project, there's a 600-foot piece of approach main necessary for their development. They need a 12-inch main. Management's recommending oversizing that to a 30-inch main because it will connect 2 other 30-inch transmission mains, and so it's an important connection for our system as we move water to the area between Gretna and Papillion. That oversizing is estimated to cost the district approximately $285,000, but it is an important part of our distribution system. I would also mention that this project is not in our gas service territory, so we will not be serving gas on this project. Are there any questions I can answer? All right, thank you.
Ms. Savine, will you now review the wage and/or salary increases and ratifications, please? Can't hear you, Bonnie.
Sorry, my first time. Take 2. Good morning. Bonnie Savine, Vice President, Human Resources. I'll begin by recapping employee counts for the end of April 2020 and 2021. On April 30th of 20, there were 818 regular full-time employees and 3 regular part-time employees for a total of 821 regular employees. To end this April, there were 795 regular full-time employees and 4 regular part-time employees for a total of 799 regular employees. We also had 5 temporary part-time and 1 temporary full-time employee at the end of this April. That leads me into a brief review of jobs that are currently in various stages of the recruitment process. We have 7 jobs. It's been a busy month, and it will continue to be busy over the next couple of months. 7 jobs that are in the requisition process, currently going through approval processing. 5 jobs that are now posted. 5 new jobs that are expected to post this week in addition to those 5 that are posted now. 13 jobs are in the application review or interview process, and 4 jobs have selected candidates in the hiring stage. I will share that over the next 3 Mondays, we will have 21 regular new hires. So that includes this coming Monday, where we will have 3 onboarding sessions, 2 for regular employees in the morning and 1 in the afternoon for our first summer hire onboarding session. So right now, 21 new hires that are regular employees in the next 3 Mondays, and we will be onboarding 20 summer employees in the month of May. The last 4 summer positions are still being filled.
Bonnie, are any of those new hires coming on? I assume some of them are for the new construction team on the infrastructure side?
That is correct, yes. I spoke with Mr. O'Brien and Mr. Cohn, and they have effectively put together that new infrastructure team. 15 new pipe layer trainees will be starting in these next 3 Monday sessions, so a total of 15, 5 each Monday, with an additional 3 shortly after that. There is another requisition for some additional pipe layer trainees subsequent to even those. So yes, we will certainly see an influx of new staff in our construction division.
Are these external hires or transfers or both?
Actually, they're both. There is 1 internal promotion into that job, and the rest are external.
Are those positions, the external ones, are they posted on the internet?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. And now behind tab 11, you'll find the wage and or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases. Actually, they are both this month. 15 employees for the month of May. They are all OAC employees, so let's talk about the breakdown. 6 OAC employees being promoted due to the regular job posting process. 1 OAC employee is being provided a wage increase due to a job transfer. That's not a typical one we see, but the process is that the employee is not at the standard wage in their current job, and though the standard wage in the job they're moving to is lower, resulting in a transfer, they are actually moved to the next highest wage step in accordance with our OAC compensation process. So they do get a wage increase. We also have 6 OAC employees being promoted through the natural job progression process within their job family. And finally, 2 OAC employees are being promoted into SPA positions, and there are no new hire ratifications for the month of May. Are there any questions on that letter? Okay, and now behind tab 12 is the salary recommendation for the promotion of Vice President Water Operations. The district is recommending the Board of Directors approve a promotional salary increase for Michael Koenig, who has been promoted from Director Water Production and Pumping based on his qualifications and work experience. He holds a bachelor's degree in addition to a professional engineer license and a grade 1 water operator license. Mr. Koenig was hired by the district on May 30th, 1997 as an engineer 2 and has progressed through other positions with increased responsibility. The salary increase recommendation is in accordance with the current personnel policy manual, section 5 language regarding SPA compensation administration. The 9.16% salary increase recommendation follows policy language that the employee shall not be paid less than the minimum of the new salary grade. So he will be coming in at entry. Are there any questions? Yes.
Bonnie, is this a new position or filling the position due to retirement or such?
Yes, thank you for that question. That position was made available due to the retirement of Jim Shields during the time that since Mr. Shields retired, and now there was an interim vice president, and so now that position is being filled as a regular placement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Barney. Okay, Mr. Kubat, will you review the fourth legislative report?
Good morning, Rick Kubat, Government Affairs. On tab 13 should be the fourth legislative report. We are in the home stretch of the legislative session. We've got 17 business days left to go, and I want to highlight before you 4 bills. LB 26 from Senator Justin Wayne would exempt specifically residential water from both city and state sales tax. This is a bill that I think folks talked about for the last 5 to 10 years, and it's always been a matter of discussion, but nothing's ever been done on this. This would certainly benefit the district's residential ratepayers. That bill has been prioritized by Senator Pauls and has advanced from general file to select file and currently sits on select file. The next bill is LB 83. That makes changes to the Open Meetings Act. Essentially, what this bill will allow the district to do is hold up to half of your meetings in a virtual setting under regular circumstances, and in circumstances in which the governor has made an emergency declaration, you can also hold virtual meetings. That bill was recently signed into law by the governor, and as we sit here today, it's what we're relying on to meet here today in a virtual way. The next bill on the same page is one of interest. That bill is LB 131. That bill is an omnibus urban affairs committee bill that contains 6 other bills. It was first heard on the floor yesterday. It is back on the agenda, and they'll likely discuss it again early this afternoon. Of interest to the district, there were 2 possible amendments, or there's 1 possible amendment on that bill from Senator Blood to provide up an additional $40 million for private gas companies, provide a state grant program to private gas companies to respond to the increased gas costs due to the polar vortex. Senator Blood withdrew her amendment. So right now, within 131 is just a prospective $10 million allocation of state funds to assist primarily very small municipal-owned gas companies. We're talking about gas companies that are serving small communities like Stromsburg or Oahu. So for our purposes, the portion of the bill that would provide assistance to the Northwesterns and the Black Hills of the world have been stripped out of the bill. If there's no questions to that, I'm going to move all the way to page 4 and mention LB 406 by Senator Mcconaughey. That bill has substantively changed since it was originally offered. There was a subsequent committee hearing on that bill where they considered an amended version of the bill, and it does a few things. The original version of the bill sought $900,000 of water sustainability funds to look at reservoirs on the lower Platte. It still has that portion of the bill, but now Senator McDonald is seeking a $2 million direct allocation of general fund dollars. M.U.D. in the amended version of the bill would be part of this task force to look at reservoirs and flooding issues all the way from Columbus to Plattsmouth. In addition to that, there's 2 new aspects to that bill. there'd be different groups of people looking at a couple of other projects, one being a consideration of issues surrounding Lake Mcconaughey. There's been constant issues out at Lake Mcconaughey in terms of how law enforcement handles the large influx of folks during the summer months. This same study, they're going to be looking at that. In addition to that, they're going to look at some other issues regarding Lewis and Clark Lake and up in Knox County to see if they can encourage more visitors in that area. So it's essentially one bill with 3 different studies for purposes of the district. The reason why we're interested in it is because anything that has to do with the lower Platte River, knowing that our 2 water treatment facilities rely on that river, we want to be in the room when discussions are had.
Are there any costs associated with us being a member of this directly for M.U.D.?
No, other than the time of our representatives showing up to whatever meetings that they have. So that's all I have today. I'm kind of excited. I think you only have to hear from me 1 or 2 more times for the rest of the calendar year, and I think everybody should be happy with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any board members have any further comments?
Mark, the fees I was trying to recall were bank analysis fees. They're the ones that are a moving target, it seems. Anyway, okay. I wanted to clarify that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We're all kind of wondering what those were, Tim. I have one quick question. I'm not sure who I directed to, Mark Doyle or someone, but I know the water rate increase went into effect on May 2nd. Have we received any pushback from any customers from our communication or knowledge of the rate increase?
Director McGowan, Mark Doyle, President. No, we have not. And I think it might be an indication that we responsibly delayed that increase going into effect, but we did communicate as we always do. So
I remember last year we deferred that till May because of the pandemic and everything, and we did a great job communicating it, and just want to thank you for that. Any other comments from board members? Do we have anyone in the adjacent conference room who would like to make any comments?
No public in attendance right now, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, the committee meetings and public hearing have now concluded. It is now 9:22. Let's reconvene at 9:30. morning, May 5th, 2021. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and the recording will be uploaded and available for viewing on the M.U.D website following today's meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance attending in person at the boardroom today that we must abide by the City Council ordinance requiring that all those attending in person today wear a face mask or face covering or maintain 6-foot distancing from one another in indoor public settings in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This ordinance will remain in effect until May 25th, 2021. I would also like to mention that due to the recent passage of LB 83, amending the Open Meetings Act, board members are permitted to participate remotely if they so choose under certain circumstances. Today we have 3 board members, Directors Howard, Director Cook, and myself, who have opted to do so. Mary, could we get a roll call, please?
Howard.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Bagley.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Friend.
Here.
Frost.
Here.
McGowan.
Here. Agenda number 2, Open Meetings Act. I'd like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available in the back of the room, and a copy is also available in the nearby conference room set aside for members of the public who may wish to attend. And now, for those who wish to participate, we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag
to the flag
of the United States
of the States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under with liberty.
with liberty and justice for all.
It's kind of hard to stay together on that. Okay, agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes for the committee meetings and regular board meetings that were held April 7th of 2021. Do we have a motion?
So move. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Frost.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes. Agenda item number 5, proposed updates to the billing price book. I move we approve the proposed updates to the billing price book as outlined in the documents provided by Mr. Myers, and also adopt the resolution as we discussed in committee this morning.
Second.
Discussion?
I just want to thank Mr. Myers for all the great work he does for the district. I know he's well respected, and I know he's always bringing forward the numbers to make it easier for us to understand. So thank you, Mark.
Good point, Jim. And and all this, he and his whole accounting team do a great job, as we saw last month with the audit report, clean audit, and everything. That we're doing a great job record keeping, and I know they're very focused and very busy. So thank you for that, making that comment, Jim. Roll call.
Thank you very much.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Frost.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes. Item number 6, as we discussed in committee, we're going to roll that over to June and discuss it then in June with more information to be provided from Mr. Schaffer. So agenda item number 7.
So item number 7.
Capital expenditures.
Capital expenditures. I move we approve the capital expenditures as outlined in Mr. O'Brien's letter to the committee dated April 27th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes.
Frost.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes. Agenda item number 8, acceptance of contracts and payments of final estimates.
I move we approve the acceptance of contracts and payment of final estimates as outlined in Mrs. Henn's letter to the committee dated April 27th, 2021.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Bagley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes. Agenda item number 9, bids on materials and contracts.
I move we approve the bids on materials and contracts as outlined in Ms. Meisinger's letter to the committee dated April 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Discussion?
I would just like to request of Mr. Zellers, maybe just once a year, to get a report on, since Mr. Friend asked a good question during committee, the number of bids that have been awarded to our different contractors, just to have an idea of how many and who and those amounts. Maybe an end of year report might be suitable for the board.
I think that's a great idea, just to give us an idea of who's doing the work for the district and how they're, just very brief report on how they're performing.
Yes,
I think that's a great idea. This is Gwen. I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Tim and Jim.
Mark Doyle, President.
We'll definitely do that.
I was just going to say, I'll bet John will say we'll be happy to do that, so thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
John, when you say you'll do that, you'll give us a report at year end, or is that what you're planning on?
How about we do it in January, such that we can do the full year?
That's okay.
Does that work?
Sounds great, John.
Yes.
And whatever, I don't mean to pile on the enormous amount of work you and your staff already do. So if January works great for you, it works great for me and hopefully the board.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
How about the number
We'll do that. Thank you.
number of contracts and total dollar amount? Is that too much to ask? John?
No, that's not too much to ask. So, number of contracts and dollar amounts, correct? Per
total dollar.
Total. Okay. We can
And
do that.
John, if you could reflect on which ones are local, I assume that the majority of the bids that we would get would be local, but at the same time, I don't want to just think that we don't have some people that come in from other areas that are interested too. I would support local,
Yeah,
that's
that's
why I'm
correct.
interested in that.
Yeah, that's correct. Most of our contractors are local, as we've discussed in the past. As we start getting more into like annual type contracts for materials, specifically around water treatment chemicals, those majority are not local. But we can identify those as well, just like we're doing on the bid letter currently.
I think that information would just be helpful to us in terms of knowing what's available and helping us to educate us on the service providers that are out there.
Perfect. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Agenda number 10, main extensions. Director Friend?
Did we vote yet?
I think that was discussion, Mr. Chair. I think we still need to vote on
Oh, I'm sorry. I got into that
item
discussion
8.
there.
Or item 9, I'm sorry.
All right, so that was discussion. Okay, so now it's roll call on item number 9.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes. Okay, now, Director Friend, main extensions, agenda number 10.
Item number 10, discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Corey O'Brien, dated April 27th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes. Agenda,
Item 11, wage and/or salary increases and ratifications. I move that we approve the items discussed in committee this morning, presented by Bonnie Savine, and outlined in the memo dated April 23rd, 2021, also from Bonnie Savine.
Second.
Mike, are you muted? Are you muted, Mike?
There it is.
did we get them back? See a picture.
You're back. We can hear you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we lost you. Agenda item number 11, wage and/or salary increases and ratifications. Director Begley.
Did we vote on?
We didn't vote.
Okay, we need to vote. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. With that technical difficulty, we need to vote on item 11. I'm sorry.
Did we?
We have the motion.
Yeah, we didn't hear the presentation or the second. We didn't hear the motion or
I'll be glad to repeat it if that'll suffice.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So for item 11, the wage and/or salary increases, I move that we approve the items discussed in committee this morning and outlined in Ms. Savine's memo dated April 23rd, 2021.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes. Agenda item number 12, promotion of Vice President, Water Operations. Director Begley.
I move that we approve the promotion of Vice President, Water Operations for Michael Koenig, as was discussed in committee and outlined in the memo dated April 22nd, 2021 from Bonnie Savine.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes. Agenda item number 13, the fourth legislative report for 2021. Director Cook.
I move we approve the fourth legislative report dated April 26, 2021, as presented by Mr. Kubat in the committee meetings.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, President Doyle, as we discussed yesterday when we met, have you ever had the opportunity yet to talk to Mr. Kubat regarding the federal bill that was recently passed that may provide some benefit to the district? I know he's eagerly looking forward to the end of the legislative session, and we want to keep him on his game here. I think this will be something really useful for all of us to be informed about.
Director Howard, Mark Doyle, President. Yes, I did have that discussion with Mr. Kubat, and we will do a deeper dive into the package and see what may be of benefit to the district. We know that there's a lot of talk about much of the water infrastructure money being fed into the revolving loan process, and while that doesn't work for us, we're not sure that there isn't other money that's maybe going around that. And I would like to report to the board, as I mentioned last month, that I would be meeting with Congressman Bacon to discuss the district in general, but specifically the infrastructure package, and he's very supportive. We had a great discussion, and we expect to get not just cooperation from the 2nd District Congressman's office, but partner in anything we may or may not be able to do. So it was a great meeting, and Rick was in the meeting with myself and Congressman Bacon and his staff members. So we're going to take the direction of the board and your specific advice to dig into that bill. And now that Rick's heading toward the end of the session, he is welcoming the opportunity for a lot more to do. So I'm glad you pointed that out.
Well, great. Thank you so much. You do such a good job on staying on top of everything. I don't know how you cover all the bases, but you certainly do. And I thought about this yesterday evening, and even though some of these provisions maybe in terms of a loan, it's always good to see if there's any forgiveness provisions in those and not reject them out of hand. And I know neither you or Rick will overlook that you'll be very copious in your examination of that. I'm hoping we can all, the district and homeowners as well, can benefit from that legislation.
We agree, and talking about water, of course, is our priority, but we also continue and will continue to work closely with the City of Omaha on their need for relief from sales tax and those things, and also money for the CSO project, because as hard as we try, It's difficult to explain that that's not ours, but it is on our bill, and it's the same customers in most cases. So, yes.
So
thank you.
true, so
And
true.
we have a lot of discussion about a topic that we're going to hear from Stephanie Mueller in a little bit here that also ties into this, and an opportunity to possibly help our ratepayers with some of the water issues they have. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, as I recall, that was in discussion. We still have to have roll call on item number 13.
McGowan?
Yes?
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Agenda item 15, other matters of district business for discussion. We now have Senior Vice President Steve Ottismore to provide another update on the district's COVID case management.
Good morning. This is Senior Vice President Steve Osmore, and currently our vaccine counts are 505 are involved in the vaccine process, which is 63% of the district, and that number is increasing every day. We have 134 positive cases, 133 of which have recovered, and we finalized the criteria for reoccupying our facilities when the time comes. Does anyone have any questions?
That one that hasn't recovered, is that what you're saying then? You have one active case?
One active case, yeah. Total people that are impacted by COVID district-wide is less than 1%.
Okay.
And that's whether an active infection or a family member, close FMLA infection.
And what is the plan for getting people back to work?
We're going to we follow the CDC recommendations, and then we have a list of criteria that will follow: number of hospitalizations, the ratio of positive cases both within the district and within the region. And there's a whole series of criteria that have to be met before we start bringing our folks back into the workplace.
Hey, Steve, it's Jim. Has there been any formal or informal outreach to those employees who to this point have decided not to get vaccinated as to the reasons why?
Yeah, there is, and where it was a flood of people getting vaccinated, I'd say now it's a trickle. So we're still increasing the number of total people vaccinated. We're trying to find new and novel ways to entice people or convince them that it's the right thing to do, if it is the right thing to do, based on their own personal circumstances.
Thanks, Steve.
Steve, this is Gwen, and I'm going to refer again to President Doyle. We discussed yesterday whether it was feasible, whether it was of value to the employees to offer on-site vaccinations. And the county has the ability to come to the workplace to offer the vaccinations, and possibly you've had a chance, or maybe I should ask President Doyle if you've had a chance to follow up on this. Again, short notice yesterday, yes. And I don't expect you to be the person that covers everything, but hopefully you've given it some thought.
We have. Thank you for the question. You didn't surprise me. I had a good discussion with senior staff and also Vice President Savine indirectly through Mark Mendenhall. So we are prepared to answer that, or at least talk about it. So thank you for that. I'm going to let it go back to Steve now.
All right, thanks for the question. Well, the county is providing micro clinics, and this is something new. And if we can get them to do one at our facility, as of today, that's not scheduled. But we're still, that is one of our options to create a greater opportunity for our folks to get vaccinated. I think more importantly is going forward, if this is going to be an annual event, we want to run it like this, the same way we run our flu clinics and our flu shots, where it will be on a district facility where that vaccination along with the flu shot will be available, if that answers your question.
I would really encourage you to, and I know you're going to follow up on it, so I'm not worried about that. Sure. But from my perspective, the vaccination clinics that you offered in the fall for both the shingles and the pneumonia were wonderful. I mean, it was people were coming in. While I was there, people were coming in to get the shots. I got the shots. It was so convenient. I mean, it would probably take you 10 minutes away from your work site to come in and do that. And the folks that I talked to really appreciated it.
Thanks for that, and rest assured that's our plan. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Steve. Good discussion. Vice President of Corporate Communications, Stephanie Mueller, will now give us an update on the lead and copper rule. Can't hear you, Stephanie.
She's still getting organized, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I see. I thought she was talking.
Okay, good morning. Stephanie Mueller, Vice President, Corporate Communications. This morning, I'll be providing a brief update on the Environmental Protection Agency's lead and copper rule and how we are preparing for the upcoming changes. In 1991, the EPA established the lead and copper rule as directed by the Safe Drinking Water Act. Studies have shown that lead and copper levels in drinking water could be harmful to health, with the most common exposure being lead pipes and brass or bronze faucets and fixtures. It's important to note that since the inception of the lead and copper rule, M.U.D has always tested below the action level. We are confident that our water treatment process prevents lead from leaching into the water supply. In January of this year, a revision to the lead and copper rule was published. And according to the American Water Works Association, this is the most significant change to the EPA's ruling since its inception. The revisions will become active in September of 2024. I'm going to highlight the major changes along with our approach to ensuring compliance. Testing and sampling programs will be a focus of the rule changes. Who is sampled, how often, along with a change to the sampling process will be part of the ruling. Education and communication are critical components. Communication to customers with a lead service will be required annually. Changes will need to be made to our website and educational brochures to ensure transparency. Water services are owned by the customer, which extends from the water main into the home. Homes built after 1940 used primarily copper as the material for the water service. Many water services pre-1940 have a mix of materials due to repairs over the years. Currently, we have 207,904 residential water services in our service territory. Some of these services are either partially or entirely comprised of lead. For your information, a replacement cost for an entire water services, it averages approximately $7,000. We have known for the past few years that a major revision was coming to the lead and copper rule, and this has allowed us to prepare in several ways. One was in July of 2019, a change was made to the M.U.D water rules. This change stated that repairs to a lead water service were no longer allowed, and any time a lead water service was touched, it needed to be replaced in its entirety. And this is one of the major changes that is required with the new ruling. Since the water service is owned by the customer, we also wanted to find ways to assist those that needed repairs or replacements. So in February of 2020, we connected with HomeServe to offer water service line warranty programs. And as a result, M.U.D receives 12% of fees collected. And this money has been earmarked to assist those with lead water service replacement. To date, over 19,000 customers have chosen to enroll with HomeServe, and our fund holds a little over $215,000. In June of 2017, we began replacing lead water services as we ran across them through water infrastructure replacement. And since that time, we have replaced 343 lead services. In March of this year, a task force was formed to research the new ruling and ensure compliance. There are a little over 30 members on the task force from 14 different divisions within the district. The task force is broken down into 4 different subcommittees focused on water quality, operations, communications, and compliance. This task force will be making recommendations over the next few years for policy changes, workflows, customer communications, and a long-term solution for lead water services. And that is all I have, and I'll open it up for questions. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Just appreciate some periodic updates as we move forward throughout each year.
Chairman McGowan, this is Mark Doyle, President. These types of things are often, I won't say overlooked, but we don't talk about them as much as maybe we should. That's why we chose to do a brief update. The issue of lead water pipes and the fact that they're customer-owned is an extreme liability to water utilities. Eventually, it doesn't matter who owns them. There could be an unfunded mandate. And the reason we want to bring it up is to let you know that we're on top of it. We've done some very proactive moves. I'd say we're ahead of the curve in this nation in terms of knowing how many we have, give or take. It's hard to know how many we have because they're customer-owned and plumbers' records and ours don't always match. We know how many we have. We know how many services are unknowns. And if you, let's just say it's 15,000 and it might be 13,000 we know of and 19,000 unknown. If you multiply that by $7,000, it's a major liability, and it's also a health hazard. So we chose to do a brief update, and if there are ever any more questions or you'd like a breakout session, a committee session, please let us know. But the main thing is to let you know that we're on top of it, we're proactive with it, and we're going to do the best we can to shield the district from unknown liabilities in terms of finances, but also our customers from the health hazard that it does pose. So thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. That was a great update.
Mark, what are the funds that we've accumulated? What are those earmarked to be used for?
Well, that's a great question. I know Stephanie's ready to come up, and I'm going to let her do that. There's been a lot of discussion. I'm just going to hand it over. It's a great question and a great topic, and the reason why we chose to partner with a home warranty service provider.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Stephanie Mueller, Vice President, Corporate Communications. Thank you for the question, Director Howard. So the money that we have been collecting from HomeServe is earmarked to help with lead service water replacement, lead service line replacement. The committee, the task force that's been formed is going to be making those recommendations on how we're going to be using the approximately $215,000 and upwards as we move forward with this. So right now, nothing is happening to to those funds. They're awaiting recommendations.
Do we have a general idea what the proposals are?
I think at this time, the task force has just been formed in March, and so it's a little premature to really be able to say that at this point, but there are several different options that will be on the table. I don't know that we're really going to have long-term solutions proposed until possibly next year. This year is going to be a lot of time spent on researching, determining how many lead services we actually have, and starting to formulate some of our communications to customers.
Well, let me ask you this final question. Will it be more, do you anticipate that it would be more directed toward the individual homeowner or toward projects with M.U.D, within the company?
Thank you for the question again. I think that anything's on the table. I think right now, as I stated in the presentation, we are currently, we're replacing lead water services when they're part of normal water infrastructure replacement. So I think any of those items are on the table for moving forward.
Okay, well, I'd appreciate, as much as you can keep us informed as you go along, that would be great, and then we can share it with other people too.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Steph?
Yes.
We know that the owner's responsibility is from the main onto the property. Are we sensing there's still lead piping in that portion of it also from the main into the owner's property?
Yes, so there are some water services, and again, these are primarily in homes that were built prior to 1940. There are some lead services that are entirely comprised of lead, and then there are some that are partial lead. So maybe they're lead from the main to the stop box and from the stop box into the home.
I see.
Because it would be copper, because maybe they've had a leak that's been repaired by a plumber at some point over the years.
So if you file a claim with HomeServe, if you have HomeServe, for that portion from the main onto the property, you've got to do your entire replacement on the whole property, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And HomeServe is on board for replacing lead services when they are leaking. And
Really, the
yes.
entire?
Yes, yes.
That was Mark Doyle, President. Director Kavanaugh, that was probably one of the more difficult parts of the negotiation.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, but we worked it out. When you cut into that lead service, there's a hazard, as you probably know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Stephanie mentioned that our treatment process insulates the system from lead leaching, and once you compromise that, it's a problem. So we also made the decision, I don't remember if it was 19 or earlier, Stephanie, if we touch it, we replace it also. So we're using that in our prioritization for our infrastructure replacement. It's one of the many data points. If you have two areas and one maybe has more, we're going to go do that. We're doing our best to blend that in with our infrastructure replacement and take care of those as we go. Fair? Yeah. And there's also, we don't use lead solder anymore, but there's copper pipe with lead solder out there also, as you know. So that's why it's the lead and copper rule.
Yes.
Thanks.
So Steph, the house I grew up in was built in 1924 at 3432 Webster Street. And my brother actually owns that house with his wife now. If I own that house, what advice would you give to my brother does he call somebody out to test the water coming through the sink? How would a resident go about ensuring that there's not lead in their water?
Sure. So thank you for the question, Director Begley. So the first thing I would recommend is they could call into M.U.D. and make a determination on whether or not they actually have a lead service, and we can look into our records and let the customer know that. We can then give them different options. If they want to have their water tested, we most certainly will do that. That's at no charge if they have a lead water service. And then we may give them some information about HomeServe and give them their options as it relates to that program as well.
Thank you, Steph. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great discussion. Okay, I'd like to mention that due to COVID-related precautions, members of the public have access to the meeting via WebEx connection that is set up in a conference room adjacent to the boardroom at the headquarters building. Are there any members of the public that would like to address the board? And if so, please indicate your intentions to the moderator.
Mr. Chair, no public present at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Bagley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes. We are now adjourned. Great meeting. Thank you.